Joe Biden commuted the sentences of nearly 1,500 convicted criminals, including drug dealers, fraudsters, and corrupt public officials. These are not sympathetic figures. These are individuals who stole from the poor and poisoned the sick. They tore families apart and menaced communities. They were sent to jail. They belong in jail. With this action, Joe Biden didn't just reward 1,500 criminals, he robbed hundreds of thousands of victims of the closure and justice they deserve. The cruelty of these commutations is only matched by the shameless incompetence of the administration that issued them. This administration admitted that Joe Biden didn't individually review these cases, or for that matter, anyone else individually reviewed the cases. Yet he nullified the verdict of thousands of jurors and judges anyway. He also disrespected the countless man-hours that federal law enforcement and prosecutors dedicated to solving these cases. The whole purpose of the presidential pardon power is to correct individual and limited failures of the criminal justice system. It's in the nature of the power in government itself. We are a legislature. We make generally applicable, prospective laws for everyone. Can those laws, in certain cases, yield unjust outcomes? Yes, of course. That is the nature of the legislative power. The reason an executive has the pardon power is to mitigate that injustice in specific, particular cases. It's not to make generally applicable pardons in a broad set of parameters, as White House officials have caused it. Certainly not to blindly free hundreds of duly convicted criminals. These blanket commutations demonstrate a gross contempt for our legal system and its traditions. To put President Biden's actions in context, he issued more commutations in a single day than Donald Trump, George Bush, and Bill Clinton issued in their entire presidencies. Combined. Let's just talk about a few of the beneficiaries of Joe Biden's jailbreak. Jacqueline Mills stole $3 million that was intended for hungry Arkansas kids and low-income families. Dr. Mira Sachdeva defrauded Medicare by diluting chemotherapy drugs and reusing old needles on cancer patients. At least one patient, contracted HIV as a result. Fraudster Paul Burks ran a nearly $1 billion Ponzi scheme that robbed 900,000 investors of their money. Drug dealer Wendy Hechtman and her husband manufactured and distributed super deadly carfentanil, unleashing an epidemic of drug overdoses in Omaha. Another drug dealer, Daniel Fillerup, killed a 31-year-old relapsing addict by selling her fentanyl, which is 50 times stronger than the heroin she thought she was buying. Shuquan Hemingway trafficked heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamine, and guns for the vicious Jalisco New Generation cartel. Joe Biden even commuted the sentence of a serial killer, Virginia Gray, who is known as the Black Widow, for murdering 2 husbands and a boyfriend and collecting insurance money. Perhaps the president would have reconsidered this decision if he knew anything about Mrs. Gray, but he didn't, because yet again, he and White House officials did not review individual cases on the merits. They didn't pick up the case file. They didn't talk to victims or families. Then there's the parade of corrupt public officials, the worst of whom is Michael Conahan, the so-called cash for kids judge, who accepted kickbacks in exchange for his role in sending more than 2,300 children to private detention centers including an 8-year-old. Again, a judge in Pennsylvania sentenced more than 2,300 children to private juvenile detention centers in return for cash kickbacks. One man he sent to jail later killed himself. He was just 23 years old. His mother said that she is shocked and hurt by Joe Biden's commutation. Yet again, the president did not review the case individually. President Biden also commuted the sentence of an Ohio commissioner who took $450,000 in bribes. He even commuted the sentence of Rita Crunwell, a city comptroller from Illinois who embezzled $54 million. Crunwell was responsible for not only the biggest city embezzlement scandal in the history of Illinois, she was responsible for the biggest municipal embezzlement scandal in the history of America up to that time. Now, I understand that we have disagreements about criminal justice, and the Democrats don't always share my view on these things. But for years, we've heard lectures about the rule of law and how Joe Biden and Democrats are the defenders of democracy. Yet Joe Biden is the one commuting the sentences of the very public officials who most threaten the public trust in our democracy. The American people also know that Joe Biden issued these commutations for a simple reason. It helps cover up the corrupt pardon that he issued to his corrupt son to protect his family. I think we should condemn all of these pardons and certainly condemn the president for not individually reviewing the merits of the cases. But again, I understand my Democratic colleagues don't agree with that, so I only offer a resolution to condemn one pardon. Simply one. Maybe the worst of them all, the commutation of Michael Conahan, the Cash for Kids judge who took cash kickbacks and bribes to sentence more than 2,300 kids to private detention centers. The judge who put American children in jail for money. Surely the Senate can condemn this single act of corrupt clemency. Therefore, Mr. President, notwithstanding Rule 22, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to consideration of Senate Resolution 935, which is at the desk. Further, I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and that the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening